Hi, everybody. I'm Pierre Bouvard, Chief Insights Officer here at the Audioactive Group at Cumulus Media in Westwood 1. And today we are answering one of the most frequently asked questions about radio advertising. The Radio Advertising Bureau reports that one of the most frequently asked questions they get is, how many radio ads should I run? And that question always begs another follow-up question, which is, well, what's your objective of your campaign? So the RAB and the Audioactive Group examined this in detail and uncovered 6 key findings. First, that the number of ads you need across 4 standard schedules of minimum, maintenance, high impact, and launch vary based on the radio station programming format. Interestingly, agencies and radio sellers dramatically underestimate the number of ads you need for the high impact and launch campaign. The very successful Wizard of Ads agency that works with very successful local advertisers recommends the weekly high impact campaign, which reaches 2/3 of a radio station's audience an average of 3 times, and they recommend that campaign, that weekly campaign, 52 weeks a year. The media monitors, the gold standard of measurement of ad occurrence data, found that the vast majority of radio campaigns run in America are the very light minimum campaigns. Unfortunately, very few radio campaigns in a week are achieving the high impact or launch weight in terms of number of occurrences. A major attribution study conducted by iHeart conclusively connects the dots between cause and effect, between the number of ads being run and the impact that they create. And this was for a major study of auto dealers that looked at the website traffic conducted at the dealers and the number of radio ads that were run. And lastly, advertising is not one size fits all. These 4 campaigns, the minimum, maintenance, high impact, and launch, really help set expectations according to the needs of a local business. So these 4 approaches, or 4 different campaigns that can be purchased, are the minimum, the maintenance, the high impact, and the launch. And for a typical radio station, the minimum, or very light, is only reaching about 1/3 of the audience about 1.5 times. The maintenance campaign, or light, reaches about half of a radio station's audience, an average of 2 times. The high impact campaign, or medium, reaches 2/3 of a radio station's audience, an average of 3 times. And this is the campaign recommended by the highly successful Wizard of Ads agency, reach 2/3 of a radio station's audience in a week, an average of 3 times. And lastly, the launch, or the grand opening campaign, is reaching nearly 80% of a radio station's audience, an average of 4.3 times. There is a legendary radio sales consultant by the name of Steve Marks, who dubbed this campaign the OES, or Optimum Effective Schedule. This is the campaign that if you really want to get significant results, you reach 80% of the station's audience, an average of 4.3 times. How do you calculate these 4 schedules? A very simple ratio called turnover, which is the number of different groups of people that make up a radio station's audience. The formula is simply the cum of the radio station, the democratic head count, the total number of different people reached by a station, divided by the average quarter-hour audience, which is the average number of people listening in a typical 15-minute period, or the number of people reached if you just ran 1 ad on that station. So you divide cum by average quarter-hour audience, and you get this ratio. There is no such thing as a bad or a good turnover. It's just a reflection of how people use that particular radio station. Radio stations with high time spent listening have low turnovers. Stations with lower time spent listening have higher turnovers. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. You simply need to know what the turnover is, and that will unlock the key to how many ads in a week you need for the minimum, maintenance, high impact, and launch campaign. So for the minimum, you take half the turnover, and that'll tell you how many ads you need to run. So let's say a radio station has a 20 weekly turnover, cut that in half. That would give you the minimum campaign, which would reach about a third of the radio station's audience, an average of about 1.4 times. Then for the maintenance campaign, you would just simply take the turnover and use that as the number of ads you need to run in a week. So if a station has a turnover of 20, you run 20 ads, all days and day parts through the week, and you're going to get half the cum reached twice. The next campaign, the high impact, you double the turnover. So the 20 turnover becomes 40 ads run in a week, all days and day parts. That will reach 2/3 of the cum, an average of 3 times. And lastly, the launch or OES, optimum effective schedule, heavy campaign, you take the turnover multiplied by 3.4, and that'll tell you how many ads you need to run in a week to hit nearly 80% of the audience, an average of 4.3 times. So here is a handy chart. We have this on the Audioactive Group blog. You can download this slide, all the slides, and this shows you by format how many ads you need to run to do the minimum, the maintenance, the high impact, or the launch campaign. You run the ads across the 7 days, equally through the week, all days and day parts. So the example of rock, you would need 13 ads run in a week to hit a third of the audience 1.4 times, and then you'd need 100 ads run throughout the week, all days and day parts, to reach 78% of the audience, an average of 4.3 times, and that would be the launch schedule. So we wanted to understand, we know the formula, we know the 4 types of campaigns, the minimum, the maintenance, the high impact, the launch. How are people using radio? So Doug Hyde, who is the insights manager here at Westwood One, a couple of years ago, did a massive media monitors analysis, and he pulled 99 markets worth of media monitors, revealing all of the ads that were run. He looked at a typical week. He looked at almost 1,700 radio stations, over 180,000 ads, and he assigned through reach and frequency the campaigns into the 4 groups. And here's what he found is that most schedules run on American radio are stunningly light. Nearly 3 out of 4 schedules are barely reaching the radio station audience. That the schedules he found, the minimum, they were reaching only a third of the audience, an average of 1.5 times. About 20% of the campaigns were the light, where you're reaching about half the audience, an average of 2 times. And very, very little campaigns were in the high impact or launch category. And so if someone says, well, I tried radio, it didn't work, well, maybe here's the answer why. Because literally so few campaigns are in that high impact or launch category. Now, why aren't more advertisers running the high impact or launch? And why aren't more radio sellers selling the high impact or the launch? Well, RAB conducted a perceptual study of radio sellers and advertisers and agencies and asked them to indicate how many ads they needed to run on a typical radio station to do the high impact or to do the launch. And the perception among both sellers and buyers was you need about 33 ads in a week to run the high impact campaign. In reality, you need a lot more ads. You need 51 ads for the typical station. And then advertisers, agencies, and sellers were asked how many ads you need to run in a week to reach 78% of the radio station audience. The perception was about 46 ads. In reality, for the typical station, you need to run twice as many. So we have, I think, the answer to why people aren't using these high impact or launch campaigns is simply both the sellers and the buyers simply don't realize that you need a lot more ads run in a week to get this kind of impact and run these kind of campaigns. Now, what is the relationship between number of ads and business outcomes? A stunningly spectacular study conducted by iHeart. It was an attribution study. It examined 310 car dealers in 100 markets representing 19 different automotive brands across a 13-month period, and they examined site traffic from attribution studies conducted by LeadsRx, and they correlated each campaign against the number of ads being run and looking at what the lift was in auto dealer site traffic. And as you can see all the way to the left, where a dealer was only running 1 to 9 daily radio ads, just in general in the market, they saw only about a 5% lift. Auto dealers running 20 to 29 ads throughout radio in a day got a 23% increase in site traffic. And then auto dealers that were running 40 or more radio ads across a day, across the market, were seeing a 55% increase in their website traffic. So you can see absolutely there is a cause and effect. The greater the number of radio ads, the greater the business outcomes. The greater the number of radio ads, the bigger the impact. And so we can kind of start to see that there is a business outcome relationship here between the number of ads. Whether you do minimum, maintenance, high impact, or launch, the impact will be significantly different depending upon the weight. So how can you put these new insights from RAB into action? Well, first, set the right expectations. Do not expect grand opening or launch results from a very light weekly campaign. These 4 schedules really help set expectations for both buyers and sellers on what could be expected based on the investment. And for advertisers, take a look at your entire year, find those times during the year when you're doing your big sales events and make sure that you're running significant high impact or launch weight during those weeks to drive the impact you want. And then make sure the rest of the year that your maintenance campaigns are reaching enough people frequently enough to keep you top of mind, because you have to be known before you're needed, of course. And then for sellers, this kind of business outcome concept creates a different rate card. Instead of saying, you know, here's the number of ads and here's the rate, you say, here are the outcomes that you could achieve: launch, high impact, minimum, maintenance. And then here's the investment you need and the proportion of my station's audience and how often you'll reach the audience that investment buys you. So 6 key findings from this RAB study. Number 1, the number of ads needed to do the minimum, maintenance, high impact, and launch varies depending upon the turnover and the radio station programming format. The agencies and advertisers in our study dramatically underestimated the number of ads to achieve that high impact or launch. Probably that's why so few people are using them. Simply, not a lot of people understand how many ads you actually need. The very successful Wizard of Ads ad agency actually knows how many ads you need to run. And they recommend that high impact campaign, which is 2/3 of a radio station's audience reached weekly, an average of 3 times, and you run that 52 weeks a year. And no wonder why their advertising clients are so successful. The Media Monitor's analysis of a week's worth of 1,700 radio stations revealed very few are running the high impact or launch. Simply, most of these campaigns are the super light campaigns. The iHeart study attribution showed very clearly the cause and effect between number of ads and impact on auto dealer website traffic. So advertising is not one size fits all, but I think this study really helps you understand what is the impact that I want to achieve, and then what's the necessary investment and number of ads I need to do to reach enough people frequently enough to get the impact that I desire. The Audio Active Group here at Cumulus Media in Westwood One is a full-service national brand advisory. We work with clients to do a lot of measurement, whether it's brand lift, sales effects, search and site attribution, or creative pre-testing. Each and every week, we publish a new audio insight and case study. You can find it on our blog at cumulusmedia.com or westwood1.com. And when you're there, please sign up to get the weekly case study and insight sent directly to your email. Thanks so much for the opportunity to share with you the answer to the question of how many ads do I need to run in a week, courtesy of the Radio Advertising Bureau. Thanks so much.